I want to talk to you about the most important election in American politics. It happens every 4 years and is right between presidential elections. It determines if the president can actually get anything done in the second half of their term. It shapes Supreme Court nominations, budget negotiations, foreign policy leverage, and entire legislative agendas. About 40% of eligible voters show up for it. 40%. And meanwhile, the presidential election gets about 60% of turnout and wall-to-wall coverage for about 18 months. And the election that can literally, functionally, neuter or supercharge a presidency gets a Tuesday in November and a shrug. So, I've lobbied Congress, I have worked campaigns, and I have seen midterm results shape what can politically happen the next day. And the fact that we treat midterm elections like an optional form at the DMV grinds my gears. It's actually one of my top grievances. However, I understand how we may have not been taught about the importance of elections, specifically the importance of midterm elections. So for this episode, I want to cover midterm elections and how they can shift presidential power, how dramatic they can be, and how it impacts whoever is in the White House. Welcome to Ashley Please, the podcast where I explain politics the same way I do in the group chat. I'm Ashley Munson, and every week we'll unpack the headlines, make sense of the nonsense, and explain how government actually works. Bonus, we'll also give out an Ashley Please award to somebody that collectively made us say, girl, what are you doing? This is part civics class, part podcast, and fully unhinged. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Ashley Please, part civics class, part podcast, and fully unhinged. I want to start this episode off thanking everybody that has liked, shared, engaged with the Ashley Please podcast in any way. If you have a moment, take this moment and go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or iHeartRadio to subscribe, and do it because I asked nicely this time. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to acknowledge Juneteenth. Juneteenth was this weekend. If you do not know, it is the holiday that we commemorate June 19th, 1865, when the last of enslaved people of African descent found out that they were free in Galveston, Texas. Can you imagine you picking cotton and then getting a message like, yo, you ain't got to do that. You actually haven't had to do that in a while because you're free. I mean, free-ish, because we're still fighting for our rights and civil rights are being overturned. So I'm grateful that we are free-ish and that we've come a long way and that our people prove time and time again that we are resilient. That is a great segue to two of the reflections I want to share from this past weekend. One of them being, I saw Juneteenth events that had VIP sections, parts of them. VIP events on Juneteenth is really crazy for me. And what comes to mind is two things. One, the episode of Iyanla Fix My Life, where Iyanla made Hazel E., the entertainer and rapper, recite her lyrics to a portrait of Harriet Tubman. The lyrics were, pop, pop my butt, pop my butt. Iyanla responds by saying, you know what pop my butt meant to Harriet Tubman? It meant a whip. That episode is crazy, but it makes me feel like I feel when I saw the events on Juneteenth. Because what are we doing? And y'all, I'm not saying we can't have fun. I just think as Black people, there is a place and a time for everything. I think we should definitely celebrate being Black, but I think we have a responsibility as a people to celebrate and do the work. So if we celebrate and actually find a way to mobilize and activate and figure out a Black agenda or just the principles that we abide by and what we will take and what we won't after this weekend, I'm all for it. But free mezcal or tequila shots on Juneteenth is really crazy to me. I digress. My second reflection was thinking about all the things that I have done to support Black people during Juneteenth. So I held 2 marches in Chicago, 2020, 2021. The 2020 march was about George Floyd and making a stand against police officers, police brutality specifically, that killing Black people should have never been a thing. And that it's important that y'all treat us like humans and with common decency. I'm not sure how far we've progressed, but that was the message. A second half of the 2020 march was presenting policy priorities to the city and the state, and for the Illinois Black Caucus to present those priorities or include those priorities in the Illinois Black Caucus pillars. That ended up happening. Okay. The second march was about advocating for Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. That also happened. And both marches played a role in advocacy for Juneteenth. Now, that sounds great. I mean, if you Google the march, you Google my name, it will come up. Some articles that went national. I think Getty's Images has a crazy picture of me. I was so heavy back then. I mean, I'm chubby now, but I lost some weight. Point being, there's information out there on what I just stated. Okay, I cited my sources, but just like I fussed at y'all with that first reflection, I'm actually holding up a mirror to myself, because after the second march, I just stopped. I felt defeated because I tried to do a third march and tried to work with people, but Black folks in Chicago didn't want to work together. Everybody wanted to do their own thing. And at the time, I felt like I had so much going on, and I was like, I don't have to do this. I'm helping Black people by traveling the country and passing legislation that benefits people that look like me and people that don't. So I don't have to be a part of this. But I was wrong. I absolutely play a part in advocating for Black people, advocating for brown people, advocating to advance Black people, not only in Chicago, not only in the state, but also across the country. So just like I'm holding y'all accountable, I'm holding myself accountable and trying to reimagine what Juneteenth looks like moving forward. And if I'm thinking out loud, I think it encompasses marching, but more importantly, it encompasses a goal of what are we trying to get out of our cities, our states, and federal government. So I'll leave that at that, and we'll press towards the mark, people, and figure it out together. Welcome to the No Jargon Zone, where we take one concept, explain what it means in civics and the communities we serve. Today's concept is unified government versus divided government. Before we can talk about why Washington operates the way it does, we have to talk about who is in those rooms. So this is a civics 101, a refresher course for those who have amazing political acumen. But for those who are new or don't understand the fundamentals, let's rock. So the government has 3 branches. I'm a lobbyist, so I'm technically say 4. However, legitimately, the government has 3 branches of government. So that's executive, judicial, and legislative. The legislative branch is comprised of Congress, and Congress has both chambers of the House of Representatives and the Senate. We have 435 House of Representatives, and that representation is based on population. We have 100 senators. Each state gets 2, no matter how big or how small it is. Together, they are responsible for confirming appointments, writing laws, approving appropriations, and holding the executive branch accountable. Y'all remember checks and balances? Great talk. But this power in Congress is divided between 2 political parties in America, Democrats and Republicans. Now, Democrats are more in favor of an active role of government in healthcare, education, climate policies, social programs. Republicans tend to support limited government and market-based solutions and border policies. Now, don't be confused. Neither party is a monolith, meaning they don't stick to these principles concretely. Some people in either party don't always stick with the party vote, stick with their party's decisions. And because of that, we have an interesting makeup of government. So each party has like a subset group of people, which can include, but is not limited to, moderates, conservatives, liberals, crazy ass MAGA folks, crazy ass Bernie bros. Here's where things get interesting. Power in Congress is not just about who has the most seats. It's also about who controls the agenda. So the Speaker of the House controls what gets a vote. The Senate Majority Leader decides what moves through the Senate. Committee chairs decides what bills get called in committee and what bills die there. Bonus, most bills don't die on the floor or fail on the floor. They die in committee before they even get called. And a lot of legislation we don't even hear about because it dies in committee and never gets to the floor, which brings me to this important concept that we're talking about today: divided government versus unified government. Unified government is when the president's party controls the White House, the House, and the Senate. So when that happens, appointments are able to sail through most times, confirmation hearings. The agenda of that party and president are able to move through. A lot of things on the agenda of the United Government Party, they're able to implement. Now, Congress is still Congress. Does this mean things happen really smoothly? No. Egos are still egos, and people have a point to prove. So when the opposing party becomes in control of one chamber or both, that is called a divided government. And when a divided government happens, everything becomes a fight. Bills fail, negotiations are stalled, and everything, especially hearings, become political theater because every issue now requires negotiation with people who have every incentive to make the other side look bad right before the election. And if you're wondering why Washington usually feels stuck, that's usually your answer. What's wild about divided government is that it usually begins with midterm elections. There is a American politics pattern, if you will, that's so consistent that might as well be a tradition. The president's party usually loses seats during midterm elections. It happened to Clinton in 1994. It happened to President Obama in 2018. Well, Democrats lost 63 seats. It also happened to President Trump in 2018. Midterm elections are used to check presidential power, and then the congressional power shifts, and the second half of that presidency is way different than the first half. So, why should you care? Plainly, because Congress decides where your tax dollars go, bro. They decide on the laws that govern your everyday life. So it's not just about understanding political trivia, it's understanding who has the hand on the steering wheel of your life. That was so deep for no reason. But essentially, if you don't know how Congress works, you'll spend your entire life blaming the wrong people. Okay, so that was my civics 101 explanation. Let me give you a real life example of what that looks like in real time. So, Trump halted the Senate confirmation process for his own intelligence nominee, showing how unified government still has internal party dynamics functions. Let's talk about it. So here's what's happening. Republicans control the White House. That means we have a Republican president. They also control the House of Representatives and the Senate, meaning majority members of both chambers are Republicans, which means technically we have a unified government. You see how I tied that in? But this week, President Trump delayed his own nominee to prove a point. The nominee that he delayed was for Director of National Intelligence. His name is Jay Clayton. But he delayed this nomination to encourage another nomination to go through first and for Congress to support his voter ID priorities. Crazy work. So, though on paper this is a unified government, Trump is a Republican. Congress is controlled by Republicans. He delayed his own party's agenda for his own personal dictatorial reasons, if you ask me. Nobody asked me, but you did because you're listening to my podcast. So this exposes how infighting is a real piece of party dynamics, both Republican and Democrat. Let's not get it twisted. Democrats aren't perfect either, but we are just showcasing how dysfunctional this presidency is. As always, we end Ashley Please by awarding somebody with the Ashley Please Award. That award is given to someone that made us collectively say, girl, what are you doing? Funny, serious, otherwise. This week, the award goes to Jonathan Pye. Shares his brutally honest views on the world of politics. Let's take a look.
Back to you, Sophie. Thank you. It's interesting, isn't it, that Trump signed this deal in Versailles, the location of another famous humiliating total capitulation. But, of course, Trump will spin this as a massive success because he's got form in declaring he's won when clearly he hasn't. But this war was a success in the same way that paying $14 million to have large chunks of blue paint floating in an algae-infested reflecting pool was money well spent. The truth is, the United States has rarely looked weaker and Iran has rarely looked stronger, having now worked out that if anyone doesn't do exactly what they want them to, they'll just close the Strait of Hormuz and they've got the whole world by the ball bags. We went from week 1, I will win, victory will be easier than that time I kidnapped the president of Venezuela, to week 2, I won, to week 3, why aren't you helping me win, to week 4, I don't need your help to win, but if you don't help me win, I'm going to destroy NATO. Week 5, if you don't let me win, I'll annihilate an entire civilization. It's quite a feat to give the Iranian regime the moral high ground, but luckily Donald Trump shattered the illusion of American morality a long time ago. Week 6, we're winning, and to prove it, here's an AI picture of me dressed as Jesus. Week 7, the Pope is a soy-filled woke Guardian reader. Week 8, I'm getting bored now. Weeks 9 through to 14, really bored now, and I've got ballrooms to build and cage fights on the White House lawn to organise, and 4 months later, victory! Thank you very much. Where's my peace prize? And if the rest of the G7 can just clear up the mess and pay the bill.
He ain't lying. That's crazy. I don't think he over-exaggerated one thing. I appreciate deliveries like this, even though he's not a journalist, but he spoke the truth. What I gathered from this and what I encourage y'all to do at some point, at least once, is to view news outside of the United States. Yep, that requires doing some research. We do research about the Kardashians. We do research about an album or who Drake's talking about on his Iceman album, right? We do research for what we want. Do some research on news outside of America. You would be super appalled, probably not, because the world's taking us as a joke right now, but you would be super shocked, educated on how the world perceives us. And not just like Europe. Look at some of the other countries and what they're saying about what's occurring in the United States. Speaking of call to actions, I did not give y'all one last time. That was my fault. This week, I want you to research how your state houses are made up. Let me rephrase. I want you to understand the legislative branch of your state. So, in each state, there is an executive branch, a judicial branch, and a legislative branch. For your state, the person that is essentially the president of the state is the governor. Under the governor, there is a state house or a state senate. Figure out what's the makeup of that government. So, for Illinois, for an example, we have a Democratic governor, Governor J.B. Pritzker. And under him, we have a supermajority of Democrats that are in the House and the Senate, meaning the Democrats control the state legislature. If the Democrats want to pass an agenda, pass a bill, Most of the times it gets through, unless there are party politics involved, or if the governor wants something, or if the Speaker of the House wants something, or if the Senate President wants something. But the Democrats have an agenda that they can get through because it is a Democratic united government. You see what I did there? That has been episode 3 of Ashley Please. I hope you learned something, because this is part civics class, part podcast, and fully unhinged. See you next time. Subscribe.